we're going to spend some time together. We're going to spend that time going around the world. And I had the opportunity to do that last year. Actually, this is the fourth or fifth official time around the world, which is when you start, you leave out the front door and you come in the back, okay? But I've had maybe 20 or 30 round the world equivalents where you go 3/4 of the way around and you go back the same way and things like that. So I'm not a stranger to airplanes. But this trip was different. A lot of times I'm going to a particular country because I've been invited to talk about peace, inclusivity, to work on issues of how we are one or where we are separated, etc. This was a journey that was triggered by a book. And the book is A Story Waiting to Pierce You. And it's by an author named Peter Kingsley, and I'd never heard of him before. And a friend read me a segment of this book, and even as she was reading the segment, I kind of wanted her to stop, because I said, this is going, if I keep going in this, it's going to change me, and I don't know where that change will take me. So that change wound up taking me to a cave in the middle of the Himalayas. I didn't know that at that time. And what she read was this. The subtitle to the book is Mongolia, Tibet, and the Destiny of the Western World. He says, cultures are created and destroyed in ecstasy. And for every moment in between, there's nothing that keeps a world alive, aside from the breath of ecstatics. People in general sincerely believe that they know what life and the past and present are, although they know nothing. The news, the huge archives, the carefully written books are all about nothing. They are not even about the shadows of reality or about moving chairs on the decks of a ship that could soon go down. They are absolutely nothing. The whole of existence is an elaborate illusion to make everyone believe that something can be done here, although nothing is ever done. And at this point, I'm like, huh? That's what I'm out here trying to create a world that works for all beings. What do you mean nothing's being done? But what he meant was that nothing's being done at this level, that there's another level, what he calls the ecstatic level, the level of the heart, and that's where all the work is taking place. And that people have known this, and that people have known about this heart work for a long, long time. And it's only us in this society that have gotten away from the heart in pursuit of other things like money. So that quote launched me to try to find the roots of a civilization that actually worked. To make an assumption, and the assumption being that human beings worked well on this planet at one time. And we can work well again if we remember our values, remember our focus, remember what we're supposed to be doing and how we're supposed to be doing it, and remember what our power is. Remember where our power lies. So, I could keep going on that mode for about an hour and a half, but you want to see some pictures, so I'm gonna go into the picture mode here. The first thing we have to do, though, is we have to do some unlearning. We are all approaching the world through a set of filters, a way of looking at reality. If the filters work for you, you keep using them. If no one ever questions the filters, you'll keep using them. So what I'm going to do now is help you to start questioning what some of those filters might look like, so that when you come up against the things that you've always known, the things that you've always seen, you may look at it with different eyes. In fact, maybe you'll see it for the first time. So, I got a test for you. The test is, what do we know about the bubonic plague? We all studied it in school. What do we know? You didn't know there was going to be a pop quiz, but yes, this is audience participation part. So, what do we know about the bubonic plague?
Killed a lot of people that were infected from rats bitten by rats.
People bitten by rats. When? The fleas on the rats. Oh, we're really smart. Okay. Okay. When? When did this happen? 14th century, 1350s. Okay. I'll give you half credit for that one. Where? Europe. Okay. So, this is what we know about the spread of the bubonic plague. Some of these places, there's some interesting spots that didn't get had no plague activity. Okay, but this is pretty much the way the plague spread. This is what you were taught, the way the plague spread. This is how it actually spread. It wiped out almost all of humanity, not Europe. Okay? Now, we're talking about the Middle East, we're talking about India, we're talking about almost all of Asia. Now, when I saw this slide, my question was, why didn't I know this? And there's a reason why you don't know this. And that's because the people are writing the textbook, all the people on this side of the line don't count. Doesn't matter. We don't need to even research them. It doesn't matter what happened to them. Okay? So, what I'm suggesting to you is that what we know, the schooling that we got, may be correct, but only partially correct. It may be correct in one context, and when you expand the context, it becomes incorrect. Okay? So, I see a number of heads nodding. I don't see any shaking this way, so we're going to go on to the next slide. Okay. Unless you're just not brave enough to say, wait a minute. Okay, so I want to start in Egypt, which was my first landfall, and I want to talk about the world's oldest structures. The pyramids, haven't seen the pyramids? When you first see the pyramid, I mean, all of us have images of the pyramids. All of us have at least $1 bill in your pocket. Okay, you've all had some connection to the pyramids. And when you first see it, it still takes your breath away. It was startling. You know, I couldn't even talk for the first couple of minutes. It's like the magnitude of these structures. This particular shot, I'd gone up to a rooftop restaurant with a friend, and when you walk up to the top of the restaurant, you see the full moon. I said, wow, I want to be positioned where I can see this full moon. And the waiter, his whole face just fell. He says, but sir, what about the pyramids? Yeah, and a fairly full Venus rising over the pyramids. That was pretty darn romantic. The thing that that really struck me about the structure, first of all, was how big it was. That's the Sphinx right there, and when most of the time when you're looking at pictures of the pyramid, they take it from the position of the Sphinx. It makes the Sphinx look so much larger. I was looking over the Sphinx, like where's this? It's right down there. The second thing is, the standard story tells us that the pyramids were created as a tomb for the pharaoh Khufu, and that this was what happened roughly 4,000 years ago. The standard story is wrong. It's just, when you look at it, it's just plain wrong. This isn't a tomb. I don't know what it is, but it's not a tomb. And we're so stuck in the standard story that all the evidence that says this isn't a tomb, it's not like any other tomb for any other pharaoh, none of them are tombs, none of them had bodies in them, none of them, we just ignore all that stuff. And there's a reason why I'm talking about this, which has to do with my second landfall, which was a town called Şanlıurfa in Turkey. It is the site of a place called Göbekli Tepe. And Göbekli Tepe is quite an anomaly. Maybe my batteries are, or maybe I'm not pushing the button. Göbekli Tepe has these 20-foot tall granite monolithic stones, standing stones. The thing about Göbekli Tepe that makes it very, very interesting is that the stones were 20 tons, had to be moved from miles away, and it's carbon dated at 12,000 years ago. Okay? It's twice as old as Stonehenge. It's bigger and more intricate than Stonehenge. The standard story tells you, what were people doing 12,000 years ago? This is called the Neolithic period. They're running around with spears trying to bring down a gazelle. Okay? They weren't building this. Again, this is carbon dated. Look at the carvings on this. These stones are 20 feet tall. How did Stone Age people with their with their spears go chipping this away, put it on their shoulders? They didn't have rope, so put it on your shoulders, carry it about 4 or 5 miles, and then set it up straight. And where it's been sitting up straight for 12,000 years. Okay? So you get the impression that the standard story might just be wrong. Okay? This is an aerial view of one of what could be hundreds of these circular areas. Now, the standard story people say, oh, this has to be a temple, because anything that's really old and really big has to be a temple or it has to be a tomb. They weren't interested in anything else except burying people. So, not a temple, not a tomb. We don't know what it is. Doesn't matter right now what we know. We will be the people that can sit inside of mysteries. This is a really, really, really big mystery. I do have to say, all of these pictures were stolen from National Geographic. I was in Şanlıurfa, Turkey. My intention was to see Göbekli Tepe. I was sick as a dog, lying in a hotel room for 3 days, and didn't get to see this. Hopefully I'm going to go back and see it. Okay, so I said I was on a journey for sacred civilization, but what is civilization? What do we know about civilization? Well, we know something about ours. We know that our Western civilization is on the back or on the shoulders of Greek civilization. Actually, I see here, it's not. And then we know that Greek civilization sits on the shoulders of one man, Pythagoras. Pythagoras as the spiritual father of all of the philosophers that came after him. Socrates, Plato, Parmenides, you name it, they all gave their roots at Pythagoras. This guy. Okay, cool beard. Okay, where'd he get it from? Where'd he get it from?
The East.
The East. Wow, somebody's reading up on things. Okay, that's fairly vague, but yeah, it's a general idea. We couldn't have gotten it from the West because the people didn't have civilization at that point. When you read Pythagoras in Greek, in ancient Greek, as this guy, Peter Kingsley, reads and writes in ancient Greek, when you read it, Pythagoras tells you where he got it from. He got it from a guy named Abaris. And this guy lived in a country called Zhangzong, okay, in Central Asia. Now, scholars have been reading those words for hundreds and hundreds of years and saying, oh, that can't be so. He's talking about some mythical figure, some demigod or something like that. He can't be talking about a Mongolian shaman who can't read and write. And the reason they said things like that was because from the things that he was saying about Abaris were impossible according to how we see the world. Yeah, Abaris could walk around the entire country of Greece in a month. Abaris could fly through the air. Abaris could walk through walls. And so you're not talking about a human being, you're talking about some mythical creature. But I had the feeling that they were talking about a human being, and they're talking about a lot of human beings from this region that could do things like this. Okay, so this is where Zhangzong would be located. This is the Tibetan Plateau, part of Mongolia, part of Ladakh. Actually, I was there. You see me waving. And part of Tibet. This was the ancient kingdom of Zhangzong. Isn't this cool? This is, I don't know if you've seen a Fuller, Buckminster Fuller projection Dymaxion map, but this is a map that renders all of the continents in their actual appropriate size. Okay, and so this is North America, South America, Antarctica, Africa, Asia, Australia, and this is the path of people who left Zhangzong to civilize the world. So Peter Kingsley said, Abaris comes from this region and went to Greece. There's evidence that they went to the north and the shamanic traditions, not on this journey, but on a prior journey. I was in northern Russia in what they call an indigenous village, seeing shamans, white-skinned, blue-eyed, blonde-haired shamans who had been in a shamanic tradition for thousands and thousands of years. So I think that this is the first global human civilization. Down into India, where the Vedic tradition started, into Asia, across Asia, and you can't see it, but actually they're doing excavations in the Forbidden City in China, in Beijing, and they're looking under it and they're finding there's a whole other city underneath there. And they said that city came from people who came from this region. Okay? Extended out through Taiwan, out into Polynesia. Okay? So these folks became the Polynesians, and the end of the road there was New Zealand, where I had a chance to talk to a Maori elder. And he was asking me, what are you doing here? I was kind of tiptoeing around all this, and I said Zhangzong. He says, oh, you mean Zhangzong? He says, yeah, that's where our people come from. I'm like, cool. Makes my job a lot easier. Okay. No tiptoeing here. Okay. Across into Siberia and across the land bridge into North and South America, becoming what we call Native Americans. Now, from the perspective of the standard story, all these so-called indigenous people all just kind of start doing all this stuff the same time, the same way, etc. It's just amazing how they kind of figured out these things all at the same time, but they're not connected to each other. When you look from this perspective, you can't help but see the connections. First thing is, they look like each other. I would defy you to tell me which of these people are Native Americans and which ones of these are Ladakhis. Okay? Let's look at this woman in particular. Facial tattoos on her chin and lower jaw. Facial tattoos on her chin. Facial tattoos on her chin and lower jaw. 3 different continents. Okay? This isn't accidental. Okay? We're looking at, what's happening? What did I just do? Go backwards. Or who did that, I should say. It's reverting the other direction now. So let's look at what these Zhangzong similarities look like. Number one, they look alike. Language. Now, I don't mean in terms of languages, they all speak different languages. In fact, they speak different languages per continent. You know, Lakota and Cherokee can't talk to each other. But they have a similar form of language where, and I was demonstrating this, so I was listening for this in Ladakh, and I was saying my Native American friends in Oregon talk the same way when they're talking to each other. And what that is one party will say, ba ba ba, and it's a very abrupt, like it feels choppy to me. You're like, ba ba ba, and the other person, before this person stops talking, a little ba ba ba, the same thing, ba 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 ba, ba 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 ba. Okay, and so there's like this rhythm to it. And when I was in Indonesia, and I said, I was hearing this rhythm. The guy says, we talk the same way. There's this common thread, and it's interesting that we can explore that. But one of the most common threads is the thing that we're starting to pay attention to now, and that is these 3 values: a relationship to and reverence for the earth, a relationship to and reverence for all beings, including but not exclusively human beings, and a relationship to and working in the transcendence. So people of this first global society have one foot in this 3-dimensional world. There were parts of the trail that were wide enough to get a car down. This was not one of them. So you see the trail part here, to put in perspective, this is Stanzen right there. Okay, and there are parts of the trail that were a lot steeper than this. Okay, I mean like where the shoulder of the trail would plunge. I wouldn't hit rock before I hit the water. I just hit the water. That was quite interesting. There she is again, sitting near board. And this is the trail that we had to walk up. Okay, and this is the view straight down from the trail, which was, like I said, interesting. Okay. There's something happening here. Oh, okay, this is supposed to happen. This is the Hunderdok, the village that we were going to. I actually met her from email from a friend. By the way, we're looking at that peak there is probably in China, and the one on the other side is probably in Pakistan. So we're as close to that area as we can get. And I judged that peak like maybe 25,000 feet. But now we get to the really good stuff. Okay, let's do a time check. We're okay for time. So I'll pause right here for a second. Getting to Hunderdok took everything that I had, all of my physical and emotional and spiritual energy. It's a 12-kilometer journey from where you turn off of what they call a road into to get to Hunderdok. Half of that you can take in a vehicle. There's only one vehicle in the village that would try to get down that road. And the vehicle was filled with spare axles and springs and things like that. If anything broke on the road, you either push the vehicle off the side of the cliff and walk back, or try to fix it right there on the spot, because AAA does not get that far. Okay? And so the vehicle lets you off at the 6-kilometer point, and then you have to walk the rest of the way. So I said to Stanzin, as we were walking and going up and up and up, I said, how much of this journey is up and how much of the journey is down? Because she knew this is like maybe my second or third week in Ladakh. And so I was handling flat areas pretty well. I could handle going down. Going down was easy. But going up, even a slight incline, I was puffing and blowing like you saw on the other clip. And so she thought for a moment, and she said, half up, half down. So I said, okay. So we start walking and walking. We're in the third hour of going up. And I am stopping and actually leaning against rocks for, like it felt like every 100 feet or so. And I said, where's the down part? And she said, 3 days from now when you go back. Now, we are laughing. I was not laughing. And I was really seriously not happy. And she looks me in the eye and she says, if I told you the truth, you wouldn't have come. And she was right. And I was very, very happy that I got there. On the way, though, we got to a spot, and again, you saw how wide the path was at spots, where the cliff face was straight down. And she's about maybe 30 or 40 feet ahead of me. And she turns a corner and disappears. And all there is, and I have a vertigo issue. And so the thing I was doing was just watching her. I was trying to blank everything else out of my mind. Like, if she can make it, I can make it. I'll put my feet where her feet were. And she just disappears. And I said out loud, I just can't do this. This is too hard to do. And I also recognize I didn't have any choices. I could not stay on this ledge that's about this wide. I couldn't go back. The vehicle's gone. I'd have to walk all 10 kilometers back. It'd be dark before I got there. Didn't have the flashlight. And I can't go forward because there's, like I said, there's this. Remember, you saw the movie The Matrix? Remember when Neo was out on that ledge? That was a piece of cake next to what I was looking at. Okay? So what I did was walk forward. And it was frightening. It was the hardest thing I've ever done in my life. And when I turned, and I'm hugging the cliff. I've got this bag that is pulling me toward the river, okay? And I finally get around this corner. And Stanson is looking there like, what took you so long, And one of my insights from that moment was facing my own issues, facing my own reality, facing my own challenges, and I can do that. I was wondering during this entire trek, I'm going to call this Peter Kingsley guy and ask him why he infected me with this notion. But I am glad he did. I am glad that Stanson did. And I actually went back to this region to go to what I am calling the Temple of Tara. I knew I was supposed to have a cave experience. I was supposed to spend time in a cave. And this is outside of the realm of rationality, okay? But it's like, find a cave. And lots and lots of the monasteries have caves. It's like kind of super deluxe cave, air conditioning, running water, And I was like, no, I have to be away from things. So I went back to the Doak River, and I'll show you where I was. Can you see me over there? I'm waving. Okay. This is, thank you, Google. This is, again, the Himalayas. Can I live without a laser? We'll see if this is going to behave itself. So this is the region that I was in. Getting a little, that's just in case you want to put names to places here. And this is still closer. I was in this bend in the river. Wait, or is it this bend in the river? We'll see in a second. And here's the complex, the abandoned village and the caves. And that's, I think, as close as we go. So this ridge right here, the caves are embedded in that ridge. So we're looking straight down at the abandoned village here. The river runs this way, and this is where the vehicle dropped me off. And these are the caves. It's about 400 feet to the river, and you go, this is like an incline going up a hill, and then you've got to go up. And I had one person behind me pushing, another person in front pulling, and we got up there. When Stanson said, this will be a great cave for you, I said, I think it will be too. How are you going to bring it down here? And this shows, again, more of the area. And those are the prayer flags that I hung. This journey was funded through crowdfunding, and I was very, very happy that the crowd came through. And for the people who came through at a particular level, I said, I will hang a prayer flag for you somewhere. And that's as good a place as I could find. This just shows the abandoned village down here, the cliff complex, and this is an amazingly stark landscape. You see very, very little that is green, very little that is that's living. And there was home for 3 days. When I got there, we brought up food and water. Food was 3 dozen boiled eggs, and this stuff called sampat, which is a barley flour, and you mix it with water, and it turns it into like the consistency of pancake mix. Then you drink it. And I got the notice, I got the insight that when I entered the cave, I was not supposed to eat. And I said, oh, I brought all this food. But I think that was part of reaching these insights. So, I think you should listen to this one, if you can. Can you hear that? Okay.
Actually, I'm not sure these are yaks. These look more like what they call the zoo, D-Z-O-U, which are a cross between the yak and a cow. I think yaks have longer, stragglier fur. But still, what in the world are they eating? Or are they just playing follow the leader if this guy is lost?
So you can see the river right here, and you see the abandoned village down here. Okay, so I had, the beginning of my profound experiences happened with this particular yak herd. This was, I took that video on the first day. Second day, I was out on the area I call my porch, which is a sitting area that's about this big, and I could sit and I could watch anything happening in this area. And so I watched 5 of these, I call them yaks, but I think the technical term is zoo. It's hard to say zoo, so I'm going to call them yaks. And I'm watching 5 of them, and they're wandering around. And as I'm sitting there in this meditative state, I say to myself, I am going to put myself in the state of these yaks. I'm going to be in that space. I'm going to feel what they feel. And so for some time, I'm not telling time, but for some time I'm just there, and I am one with these beings. And then they start to do something really interesting. The 5 of them would walk, and they would put their heads together so that they were all facing each other. And one of them would peel off from this formation and would walk down here to the river, and then walked into the river and tried to cross the stream. Well, the Doak River at that point, it literally picked this 1,000+ pound animal up, turned it over, and it barely got back on its side of the river and walked back to where these other ones were waiting. I said, that is weird behavior, okay? So I'm still looking there, and so the one that just took the skinny dip was walked back to these five, and again, they're facing each other. Their heads are together. And this time a different one peels off and starts walking to the river. And I'm like, what? What's going on here? And it walks into the river, and again, it's picked up, spun around, turned over, and it barely can scramble back to its side of the river before it turns the corner. When it turned the corner, the river got swifter, and so it would have been goodbye yak. And so I'm at this point, I'm literally standing up. I don't get this because I'm actually looking at, there's more vegetation on their side of the river than my side. I said, there's no difference between these two sides of the river. What is the difference? And then I realized there is a difference. I'm on this side of the river. And they are picking me up. And I don't want them risking their lives because of curiosity or because I entered a state where I am one with these beings. So I said out loud, don't try it, okay? And then I went inside my several million tons of rock and said, hopefully this will end the signal. And I tried to think unyak thoughts, okay? And so I checked back 10 minutes later, and they weren't doing the group grope on their side of the river, and they were going back to just wandering around being yaks. This was a powerful lesson. How many of you are familiar with Rupert Sheldrake's work? Dogs That Know When Their Owners Are Coming Home. His latest book, I think, is The Sense of Being Stared At, and he's been researching this quality, but of connection, quality of connection, period, and in some cases, connection with other beings.
Doesn't he call it the morphic field?
The morphic field. I call it something a little different, but I accept his definition. The thing, though, that is different here is that these aren't pets. I have had no experience with a yak, a zoo, little experience with cows. I mean, it's just kind of like it's all that stuff. And to have that kind of a connection says something. Now, what that something said, I didn't find out until that night. The first night was powerful. The second night was beyond that. I'm still trying to process what I learned and what happened. Let's look at a couple of things. I had actually had some pain when I was in Ladakh, and it was only on one side of my body, but it meant that I couldn't lie certain ways and I couldn't stand certain ways, etc. So when I would wake up being conscious of having pain. And one time when I woke up and I was very much aware that I was not alone in the cave. And woke up, looked, and I saw two golden eyes in a section of the cave where there should not have been eyes of any color. Okay? And analytical Shariff kicked in. That's a snow leopard. Okay? Or that's a really hungry wolf. Or what could it be? And I started going through all these mental, what am I going to do if it's a snow leopard? What am I going to do if it's a such and such? And luckily, Shariff the Holan kicked in and said, whatever that is, it belongs in this cave, and it belongs in this cave with you. So, close your eyes. Don't allow my eyes to get me into phenomenology. Okay, oh, I see the head of a pin. Let's see how many angels are dancing on it. It's like, no. Don't look at the pin. Don't look at the angels. If there's a message here, you're to get the message. And I got the message. The message had to do with the 5 latent powers. Now, I just finished a 2-hour teleseminar on the 5 latent powers. I'm going to breeze through that stuff in a minute or two, because y'all are just so smart. You'll just get it in a minute. But this was the culmination of the sacred civilization's journey. I realized I was on the wrong track, and I got on the right track really quickly. I got an understanding of the collective mind, or what I'm calling the holonic consciousness. Arthur Koestler had created a word he called the holon. And the holon is something that is whole in and of itself. It's made up of larger wholes, and it itself is made up of smaller wholes. So I'm standing here, I have a heart, I have a liver, I have other stuff in here. And each one of those things is made up of stuff. But then I'm part of a community, I'm part of a country, I'm part of a planet, I'm part of a solar system. So when you become holonic in your consciousness, you can connect with and have the consciousness of more than just your individual self. Sheldrake calls it the morphic field. I call it the life energy field. Same thing. There's a field that wraps all of us. The people of Zhangzung's heritage are aware of that connection at all times. We in this society act like it doesn't exist. It exists. It still affects us. In fact, it can drive us crazy. But mentally and with our conscious minds, we act like it doesn't exist. And maybe it's time we change that. The activation force for the life energy field is what I call ordinary ecstasy. And I was using the term love, and people were misunderstanding me into believing that I was talking about cute, fuzzy bunny love. Oh, we should all just love each other. And it's like, no. Love as an active force cuts in ways that we as individuals may not want the world to be chopped up. And once we get to a point where we can see that, then we get to recognize that love is not about me feeling good, or it's not just about me feeling good. It's not about being nice. It really is about propelling life and this life energy field forward. Okay, so I tell a quick story about this, and this story came out when I was living on the East Coast. The story was in Boston. A woman was living in a high-rise apartment. She was in a kitchen. Her child was playing near the window and was playing with the screen in the window. accidentally pushed the screen out and was falling out the window. Mother runs across the room, grabs the child in mid-air by the arm, hauls the kid back inside the house. Later, the kid is complaining that his arm hurts. Takes him to the hospital. She had crushed all the bones in his arm. And that's called love. So, see, he's probably 40 or so, and may have a slightly deformed arm. And just proudly will say to people, yeah, my mom crushed my arm. Yeah, because that's what love does. Love makes you hyper-aware of the life energy field. So let me tell you the opposite story, since I've actually got a couple minutes. Yeah. So, opposite story. A few years ago, I was up at the World Forestry Center here, and they were having an exhibit of birds. And in one of the rooms, they had raptors, and they had a golden eagle, and it had a busted wing. They were nursing it back. They were going to release it soon, but this was basically a wild bird that they were going to release. And so the keeper, a woman, had a glove on, leather glove all the way over her elbow, and the bird's sitting here, and the bird also has leather, what do you call them, thongs on, and she's holding them. And huge birds, like this. And I start talking to her, about the bird and where it came from and things like that. And the bird is like ignoring all of us. It's like, hey, I know I'm bad. I'm just looking. I know everybody thinks I'm cool. I'm just going to sit here and be cool. And all of a sudden, while I'm talking to this woman, this bird focused. And I had never been, I could feel the bird's focus. And my first thought was, what happened? And I looked in and looked around, and there's a woman who had just wheeled her baby into the room. And this eagle had focused on this baby. And the keeper said, I've got steel ribs in this glove, because when that baby came in the room, this eagle would have broken my arm. It gripped down. Okay. And she tightened her grip on the leashes. And the mother was completely oblivious to the fact that this eagle wanted to eat her child. She couldn't feel it at all. She said, oh, look at the pretty birdie, And I'm like, I'll bet the kid could feel it. I'm about to become dessert, But we're so far away from life. We're so far away from our own life field. We're so far away from the nature of existence. We're so far away from our own food that we don't have any experience of that. So this ordinary ecstasy, if that eagle could have gotten off the perch, and if it could have caught the baby, they're really easy to catch, that eagle would have been in ecstasy. And we have to be able to see life from the baby's point of view as well as the eagle's point of view if we're going to be talking about entering into a life energy field. And I got 2 books, but I'll talk about them some other day. And I got marching orders to set up global coherence centers where we would simply come together, and the goal would be for us to feel the life energy field, to feel the morphic field, to feel the holonic consciousness, to get out of being individuals and get into, even if it's for a half an hour, being one. Okay, 5 latent powers, or 5 holonic powers, another way of saying that. Collective telepathy and knowing. In people who are of the Zhangzong civilization will know, will just simply know things. They don't learn them, they know them. It's not like I have to go to school to pick this up. It's that I'm part of the field knows. A great example of that is the way that Polynesians would go to the next island. They didn't stumble around like Christopher Columbus. They knew where the next island was. They knew where they were going. They knew the direction. They only put enough food in the canoe to get to that island. How did they know? They've never been able to answer the question. But there are groups of Polynesians now that are rediscovering the ability to do that. Now, we Westerners want to know, what's the technique? What's the drill? I mean, there has to be. Are you looking at clouds? You're looking at waveforms? You're looking at... And the answer is, well, yeah, we look at clouds. And yeah, we look at waves too, but we also know where we're going. This is why agriculture could spring up around the world in roughly the same time frame. And I know a lot of you have heard the theories, well, there were space aliens that came and told people in different locations where things were and how to do things. It's like, yeah, we kind of didn't need the aliens. I'm not saying they weren't here, but it's almost like, I'm sorry, Mr. Alien, but you're being redundant. Okay. The second is of the 5 powers is spatial powers. Powers to be able to cross vast distances either in a short period of time or instantaneously. So the story that Pythagoras told about Abaris being able to walk around the whole of Greece in a month, from the point of view of Solons, people who are solo, think that they are individuals and they are not part of the one. That's impossible. You can't do that. And from Holons, they do it all the time. Spatial powers in terms of being in more than one place at a time. Spatial powers in terms of being able to cut and lift and move objects with their minds as opposed to with brute strength, which is why folks whose main instrument was a spear could lift these beautiful stones like Göbekli Tepe. Temporal powers. The ability to slow down time. The ability to speed up time. The ability to stop time. Now, how many of you have had the experience of you're in the middle of a task and all of a sudden it seems like 3 hours have gone by? Yes? Okay, I want to see a show of hands. Okay. How many of you have had an experience of being on a task and it seems like time stops? Okay? All right. So we have these experiences, but we don't recognize them. We don't self-recognize them. Or we think it's, oh, that was just a weird phenomena, as opposed to, no, this is really happening. Okay. The fourth of the 5 powers is communication powers. Being able to communicate with other human beings who don't speak the same language. Have you ever had that experience where you're talking to someone, you don't share a common language, but you kind of know what they're talking about? Okay? Now, those communication powers are not species specific. People who can know and communicate with an animal. How many of the Zhangzong culture people talk about being able to exchange consciousness with the salmon in the river, with the caribou, with the wolf, with being able to transmigrate their consciousness through other beings. All of them say the same thing, and each researcher is tunneling down into this specific manifestation, saying this is indigenous culture. Another way of saying indigenous culture is saying Zhangzong civilization. And that was what my experience with the yaks was, that we were exchanging consciousness. And these guys or girls, I couldn't tell, wanted the experience of being Shariff for a while. Okay? There's a great book on this, In the Spirit of the Earth. And the author's father was a consummate Protestant, so I can always remember his name. His name was Calvin Martin Luther. Seriously. And he writes books on Native American spirituality. And he says that in many of these Zhangzong civilizations, that the only way you can become a hunter is for you to become the caribou. And actually become the caribou for long enough that someone will hunt you and take your life so that you can know what a good kill is, what it feels like from the other side. And how many of you saw Avatar? Okay, so this is another, they had to use a braid. We don't need the braid. That's a good thing. Okay, and the last one is bodily powers. And this one is being investigated pretty well nowadays. The Buddhist monks that can stop their respiration, stop eating, stop drinking, stop their hearts, and start them back up again. A lot of people can do the heart stopping part. Sit out in the middle of the snow, naked, meditating, and melt all the snow around them without having any negative effects. How many of you know about Larry Dossey's work? Larry Dossey does studies on the power of prayer. This would be you having power over someone else's body to increase their life energy field. A quick Larry Dossey story. I forget which book it was in, but he did research in the San Francisco Bay Area around the healing power of prayer. There's a particular heart operation which is fairly common and has a very high success rate, and has a very common trajectory for recovery. So it takes about 6 weeks to recover. And he took these heart patients and divided them into a number of groups. One group was a control group. They got the standard medical practice, but they got no additional prayer or anything like that. the other ones he farmed out to 12 different religious groups in the San Francisco Bay Area, and said, and the only thing the person knew was the first name of the patient, and it was like, well, Shariff is in need of prayer. They didn't say it's a particular heart operation and that what the success rate is or anything like that. Just Shariff is in need of prayer. And there would be a group that would commit to praying for this person. And for all of the people who were prayed for, their stay in the hospital was half the time than the people who were not prayed for. Okay? Now, everybody's okay with that part. The part where a lot of people, including my sister, go off the tracks is all of the efforts at prayer were equal. The Buddhists didn't pray any better than the Christians, and the Christians didn't pray any better than the Mormons, and the Mormons didn't pray any better than the Jews. It's like, if you are prayed for, you will recover. And each group wants to say, oh no, my group. They should have hopped off the table before the operation ended. And so, so that wasn't the case. Okay, so the one thing that I was told when I was in the cave, still getting this download, was that I wasn't to talk to anyone about this, about my experiences, until I confirmed this, all that I got, with the Oracle of Cebu. And so I came back from the cave, and my friends are saying, what happened? What happened? I said, I got to go see the Oracle. So, and yes, I was thinking about the Matrix at the time. I had no idea what the Oracle of Cebu looked like. If she looked like an African-American woman in a kitchen making cookies, who knows? I mean, stranger things than that have happened in Ladakh. What she looked like was this. This is what she looked like before she donned her regalia to turn herself into the Oracle of Cebu. When I first came up, I was this is the most famous oracle in Ladakh. Okay, so I was expecting dozens and dozens of people, and I was expecting her to be kind of up on a podium or a stage or something. And I go over to the stream, and there's this little woman washing out her laundry. And I have my friend who's translating for me. Actually, Choldan is Stanzin's husband, so he was translating for me. And I said through him, I wanted a reading. And she said, you have to wait till other people come. She doesn't read for just one person. And after I saw all that she goes through, it takes a lot out of her to do this. So she said, go in the orchard and eat some apples. And then she turns, she's saying all this, kind of scrubbing out her laundry. Then she turns and looks at me. I'm used to people, I'm usually the first African American people have seen in the world. And she kind of looks me up and down and goes, huh. I said, okay. So we go and every time she passed by with another load of laundry, she kept saying, eat some apples. And I was asking Cholda, I said, is this part of the ritual? Like I have to eat the right number of apples before I can get a reading, So a couple other people came, and so she got her gear on. And I have video of this, of her going into her trance, but I can't find it in this computer. And so I actually put it up on YouTube, so if you go to YouTube and you put in Oracle of Cebu, you can see a minute of her in her trance. When she becomes the oracle, she actually stops speaking Ladakhi. She speaks a dialect. And Ladakhis can pretty much follow her, but she has to be translated by her daughter. And so what I was getting was a 3-level translation, translation of a translation, which was interesting. The thing that I asked was the stuff in the cave correct? Was it possible for us to transform our global human society? And the answer to that was yes. She said it's going to be very hard, very difficult. And she said there are people who will be against you that don't want this to happen. Or they want it to happen, but they don't want you to be the one that makes it happen. Okay? But that you will be successful. But that you need an assistant in order to do that. The second question was, where should I go to do this? There's lots of places I can be on this planet, and I don't know if I should be leaving America. And she said, go back. So the best place for your work is in the United States. And then I asked a health-related question and got a whole bunch of do's and don'ts. Said the bottom line is I can't eat burritos anymore.
More apples,
Yeah, right, yeah. The last thing she says is, take some more apples. Yeah. When she was coming out of the trance, and it took her as long to come out of it as to get into it, and most people left, but I wanted to see the entire process. When she came out of the trance, you could see it really took its toll from her. She sounded different, she spoke different, and it looked like she was actually in pain. I wonder what will happen, when she passes on. I don't know if her daughter's being primed to be the next oracle of Cebu, or if Cebu may not have an oracle anymore. Good time to stop and ask for questions or comments or thoughts. Is there any? Yes.
When you were left, you had someone with you when you came out to the caves.
Yes.
And then they left?
They left.
And, did you have to carry like a sleeping bag and all that stuff? How did you?
They did. Yeah, I was...
I don't understand how you had enough food there. 3 days is a long time. You have to have a lot of water.
Yeah. No, getting up there was difficult. When I say I had someone pushing and then someone pulling, I was not exaggerating. I was like, I'm getting up. And then once I was up there, I said, yeah, these caves are great. All my food's down there. And they said, we'll go get it for you. And they literally hopped down this cliff, And it took them and I have video of them leaving. Okay, so it took them about maybe a minute to get down what it eventually took me 15 minutes sliding on my butt. I am not proud to say this, to get down the cliff. But they came back up and brought me 12 bottles of water and 36 eggs and the sampat, which would have lasted for probably a year or so.
And what was the temperature? What was it?
It was actually, when I look at these pictures, it was so great. This is 80s, maybe even 90s in the sun. In the cave, it was really nice and cool. If I got, this is my porch, by the way. This area is about as big to sit on. This is the path, and then when you get to this part, there's the drop. And so So if I got too hot in the sun, I could just go in the cave. It was nice and cool in the cave. It cooled down at night, but not below, I'd say, 50s, 40s or so. I needed the sleeping bag, but I didn't need more than that.
But if you had food and like eggs, you have to
Yeah.
keep those refrigerated.
Oh,
3
no.
days worth of-
No.
3 days?
No.
Really?
Yeah. Eggs are pretty tough. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Huh? Oh, I think I'm getting it. Yeah, thank you. Yeah,
I was just wondering how you do, yeah.
in the back.
Two questions. So when you were in the cave, were you in there for like 3 days, and did you not eat the whole time?
Yes. Oh, coming back out was interesting.
Did you have water in the cave?
Oh, I drank lots of water. Yes, I had I think a dozen big bottles of water, and I drank most of those. Yes.
And second question, the golden eyes in the cave,
Mm-hmm.
when you closed your eyes,
Mm-hmm.
when you opened your eyes, did you ever see them again?
No, by the time the download finished, it was morning. Yeah. So the dawn, I should say, and that was a choice. It really was a choice. In my experiences, shamanic and otherwise, around the world, I don't want to get lost in phenomena. Okay. I've heard of this guy, I think he's supposed to be like a Sufi master who can make lightning shoot from his fingers. And my question for that is, so what? Can you cook your dinner that way? Or does it make your computer better or worse? And a lot of times, people have come to me and they've said, I am in direct contact with beings from other planets or other dimensions or whatever. And all I want to know is, what are they saying? And what are they saying that's different from what a human being will tell you? So if somebody comes from another dimension and they've got 3 eyes and a mouth on top of their heads and they're telling you to brush after every meal, so what? So don't get caught in the phenomenology, get the message. That you're looking.
Well, what message did you get from, if there was an animal in the cave with you that you were sharing it with, did you get a message from that presence?
Yes, and all those points that I listed in terms of holonic consciousness and the other things were direct offshoots of what I got from the cave. Yeah, we're from this presence. And let's see if these things here. Now, I kind of knew that there's this thing called a life energy field, okay? I kind of knew that there was this collective consciousness, etc. But I don't kind of know these things now. These are not, it's not like me reading Rupert Sheldrake's book and getting his version of a morphic field. I know this.
From your experience?
No, from the download. The holonic consciousness is outside of experience. Okay, it's not, remember, it's not, the Polynesians were not looking for a technique to find an island. They knew where the island was. Okay, so I know where the life energy field is. I don't have a mechanism for how I know that, but I know it. It's there. Just like, I didn't talk about the 2 books. I'm getting this stuff, and I'm conscious enough. I have a pad and a pencil with me, and I'm scribbling this stuff in the dark, basically headlines. And then 2 books arrive, just bung, the whole book is there, from the beginning chapter to the end chapter, the entire book. It wasn't like given in chapters and words. All I had to do was write it down. And if you asked me what was in chapter 13, I could tell you the whole ding-dong book is there. Now, that's not how we as Solons learn things. That's not how we as Solons understand things. Because it's so cool, I've learned not to question it. It's just like it's there, and I say thank you. A number of things that Sheldrake talks about in one of his books is about the people of Zhangzong, wherever they are in the world, who can locate food. Just, they sit, they meditate, and they say, the gazelle's right over there, it's 2 miles, I'll go get it, start the fire. Okay? Now, and they go 2 miles, the gazelle is there, and by the time they get back, the fire's going well enough for them to eat. We keep wanting to know how. It's one of the markers of being a Solon. We want to know how this stuff, what's the mechanism here? No mechanism. So, yes.
Are you going to be sharing these 2 books with
As fast as I can type, yes.
and the other thing, the life energy field, is that in all living, as far as human beings, animals, plants? Yeah.
It's the whole thing. I really hate to say this, but George Lucas got it right. It's the force. That's right. In fact, I had to go back when I came back. I had to go back and have, if I put those pictures up, if you put Yoda's picture up, no, he's not a Ladakhi, okay, but it really is the whole thing. And one of the things that Yoda says is the force forces you to act in certain ways, but it also listens to you. Like, you can manipulate the force. The force manipulates you. It's not a one-way street. And it's all done through what we call a mechanism that we call attention. It's paying attention. There's a text in the Chinese text called the Secret of the Golden Pavilion or the Golden Flower. They're into gold over there, and those are 2 different books. I don't know which book it's in, but it says the chicken hatches its egg by listening to it. Now, from the Solon point of view, the chicken hatches its egg by putting its warm butt on it. Okay? But what the chicken is doing is taking all of its attention. Think of the quality of attention that goes into listening. It takes all of its attention and aims this energy into the egg, and the egg starts vibrating. But it vibrates in accordance with its life energy field. And so when I can see people in this society not attending to their children, even when they're looking right at them, even when they're talking directly to them or thinking that they're listening to the child, they're not enveloping that child in a field of attention, so that for that moment, that child and that parent are one. The child doesn't get it, the parent doesn't get it, and then they wonder why the kids are always bouncing off the walls. So there's this quality of attention that I can take this attention and I can project it over the horizon to another island. I can project it to another planet. I can project this to another star. So the people who say, like the Dogon people of West Africa, they say, they'll tell you, not only did we come from another star, I can tell you we came from Sirius, and the Western scientists, oh, this is a really good folk tale here, but this is not a folk tale. This is where their consciousness resides. One other thing. I don't know if you've heard or had the experience of the phenomena of people who are put under anesthesia whose consciousness separates from their body and generally hovers above the operating room. And they can describe everything that goes on in the room, including what the surgeon says. And the Western scientists brushed it off like, oh, the anesthesia didn't really work and you were listening. Their eyes will be taped shut, and they can tell you where the surgeon was standing and how many people were in the room and all this sort of stuff. And so, again, our attention is not synonymous with our physical being. And we can move our attention in different places, including completely out of our bodies. Okay, other questions or comments or thoughts or yes?
How about the little village that deserted that you were looking down
Yeah.
on? What happened to that? How old a village was it? How did they sustain themselves? Is there any history or knowledge of?
None of the above.
Okay.
That's a really quick answer. None of the above. I kept asking, and the thing that I was really interested in was the village of Stanzen's mother, Hunderdok, and I'll show you that. I don't know if this is going to work or not. It works, okay. So this is her village. This is her mother's house. Now, it doesn't look like a house, but people live in that, okay, along with their animals. It's just I was there. And so, and I have another image of her and the fields. But you can still kind of hear the Doak River is right down there. And so I was drinking absolutely fresh mountain water that was snow like 5 minutes before it got down to this level of the village. So Stanzen's mother's name is Searing Dolma, and I don't know if this video is going to play. And this is her barley field. I'm going to try one more time. This is just not working. She and her son have to grow all the food that they will eat. In 4 months, they have to grow all the food they will eat for the rest of the year. Not just her, but also for their animals. Not just for her and the animals, but for any traveler that passes by. She will feed them. If they stay a while, she'll first make tea, then she'll feed them. Then, if they're going to stay overnight, she'll give them accommodations for as long as they want to stay there. And I was like, kind of, wait a minute, lady. Your house is the first house that people come to in the village, and if they come the same way I came, they're going to be hungry, they're going to be thirsty, they're going to be everything. So you can charge them for it. So you can charge them, $4 or $5 for a really, it's great food, and you can make money and etc. And Stanzen is translating for her mother, and she's thinking, and she says through Stanzen, she says, yes, I can charge people, but how would I accumulate merit? How would I exercise compassion? It's like, oops, I guess I should be the one taking notes here. And she's right, because there are things that are more important than money. I know that's heresy in this society, but this was going to play. Okay, so these are all her fields, and it was so beautiful. I just loved being there. I would sit by the stream that went through the land, and look at the mountains, look at the beautiful barley that's growing. She was also growing vegetables that she dries. Over there is the rest of the village, right in that spot there, and it takes 1 hour to get there. Just down these winding paths, down the ravines, down everywhere. Oops, I'm sorry. This is the other village on that side of the ravine. And you have to cross a bridge that's about this wide, made out of wood, no sides, and the drop is about 1,000 feet. Yeah. I looked. I said, ha ha. Yeah. It looked. The bridge looked like it was like out of Indiana Jones. It's like, yeah, something sort of happened here. So, okay. Other questions or comments or thoughts?
Are the people there aware of the Western consciousness?
That's a supposition on your part. Okay, that there is consciousness in the West. Okay, but
A few of us are.
yes. So, in a way, yes. Okay, so Stanzen was taken by the Mahabodhi Center when she was 2 or 3 years old and was raised literally in the convent. And so when she visits her mother, it's a visit. I mean, and she's never grown barley or anything like that. So Stanzen speaks English really well, speaks and writes English really well. She's like the cultural ambassador for the Mahabodhi guest house, which is where I stayed. Her mother, she sees these strange-looking people walk through, so she feeds them. And most of the time, they can't speak to each other because Stanzen's not there. So she just, stay, eat. Okay, you stayed another few hours, eat some more. It's getting late, sleep over there, And so she's aware that there are other countries, but the only one that she acknowledges is New Zealand. And like I say, I'm from America. If I say I'm from America and it's in that over the next hill, it's being okay. Yeah, but when somebody says New Zealand, okay. I don't know what that sounds like to her. It might be something similar to what their word for Mars is, or something like that. She sees us doing things, and she has this look on her face like, I wonder why they're doing that, I kept my toothbrush in a toothbrush holder, and the toothbrush holder is multicolored, and my toothbrush was multicolored, and she's kind of picking it up going, and then the holder's like, and it fits inside, so yes, there's awareness. She's been to the big city of Leh. Okay, that's the biggest city she's probably ever been to. Doesn't like it. Her kids have offered to move her off the plateau here and get her apartment in the city, and she just says flat out, I will die right here. Someone asked a question about you asked a question about how old the village was. Somebody asked the question how old the village, the deserted village. They have no idea how old this village is. Her assumption, they can go back about 10 generations. But, and how did they get 12 kilometers up the Doak River? I kept saying, why here? Why not, someplace I really can walk to? And it was supposed to come here. Other one in the back. Yeah.
Taking her question a step further, whatever you call it, the Western perception, the Western evolution of thought, whatever, is currently being rapidly transmitted to such countries as Africa, and the continent, and through television and computers and cell phones. They are becoming aware of that very quickly, and it seems like your thought or motivation is to bring the other frame of reference to us. How are you going to do that? And I'm assuming you can't do it alone.
Oh yeah, I can do all this stuff and exactly by myself, yes.
Are there other people in the world currently that want to do what you want to do? And do you know the answer to that?
Let's start with the easiest part of the question.
Okay.
Yes, we are homogenizing the world with this Solon consciousness. So if you go around and there's cell phones everywhere. All along the journey, Stanton, every kilometer was checking her to, do I have a signal yet? Do I have a signal yet? And it just felt so good to be so far away from any signals. Nothing is signaled there, okay? And yes, so 10,000 years ago, there was a split where the Holons went one way and the Solons went the other. And the story that we have been told has been the story of the Solons. I think that this story has run its course. And what we need to do now is bring these two things together. There'll be a part that will say, I don't want any part of that old-fashioned stuff. And they won't survive. I was in a shamanic ritual and I asked a question. Will humanity survive on Earth? And the answer I got back was wilder than the question itself. The answer was, enough will survive. So how much is enough and who is enough? Now, if the dollar completely collapsed around the world, if money became no good, somebody would have to walk 12 kilometers and tell Stanton's mother. It's the only way she would find out.
She would go, huh?
Yeah, right. Oh, no, you're right. Yeah. So, yes, right. It's actually, it may affect her reality because fewer people will be walking through and she could get more work done. So, I believe that there are not only a number of people, but a significant number of people, and maybe even a majority of people on our planet that want a world that works for all beings. I believe that there is a significant number of people who actively participate in some level of bringing that world about. The missing link is this piece about holonic consciousness. Because what most people do is they get with a small group of people and they feel good in that field and they don't extend the field any further. Most of the intentional communities I know put an energetic wrapper around themselves and they deal with each other but they don't take it out. So this thing, this holonic consciousness has to become evangelical. It has to be something that people are saying, this has to be what we need to take the best techniques of every possible religion, leave all the other crap, okay, and then, excuse me if I offended anybody by calling the crap in their religion crap, okay? Okay. and to weave this together into a whole new way of looking at things. But taking the best of the Solon culture with us. You know, there's nothing to say that we can't have electricity or lights or whatever. Maybe not as much electricity, not as many lights, etc. But there's nothing to say that we can't do that. We have to approach creating a new reality at least as powerfully as we do at supporting the old one. Okay, well, what I mean by that, I'm not even going to ask for a show of hands of how many of you have cable, and how many of you pay $1,000 or more a year to have nonsense beamed into your house. Now, we should be out there saying, no, you can't bring any of that nonsense. No, we'll pay money for this. How much are we willing to pay to create holonic consciousness? To create, how many of you either have yourself or have know someone who has paid money to go swimming with dolphins? Okay? This is an opportunity to experience holonic consciousness with beings that are a lot nicer than yaks. Dolphins don't have horns, okay? Oh, I should tell you, I ran into a dolphin on the path going back from Hundred Oak. Did I say dolphin or yak? Okay. Yeah. Okay. I ran into right. I ran into two of the yaks on the path coming back, and Stanton was behind me. So and I'm looking at them, and they're looking at me, and they're like, they're not giving way. The path is not wide enough for all of us. And I'm like, what do? They're so much bigger than I am. And Stanton caught up, and she just went, shoo! And they turned around slowly and walked back to where the path was wider, and they walked up the hill so that we could pass, and then they kept going. And I said, how'd you do that? What did you say? She says, it's just a noise. You know, she just made her intention clear that we're coming through. And that's all they needed to know. It's like they were waiting for me to back up, you know. So just made the intention clear that we're coming through. So here first, yes. You had
Yeah, the coherence centers you were talking about, can you explain them more?
Yes, a little more, okay. Actually, I can explain them a lot more, but not tonight. If you think about the techniques that we use, that we as human beings use to get beyond our localized consciousness, okay, you can name them. We use Om chanting, drumming, singing. I was just listening to Gregorian chant while I was putting this slide presentation together. All these things take us to a completely new level. But each one of them seem to be the province of a particular religion. So if you're doing Gregorian chant, you're probably in a Catholic monastery somewhere. If you're doing Om chanting, you're probably in a Buddhist or Hindu temple somewhere. What happens if we take all of the techniques, everything that we know, right down to the stained glass, okay, and put it in one place, strip it of its of the dogma that's attached to each place, and just say what we're going to do is elevate our consciousness and blend that consciousness and do that enough that it actually feels good for us to come back. So part of the marching orders I got about the consciousness centers is that I have to open 3 to 5 of them at the same time, not to open one. And I was kind of like, huh? And That's to make sure that is thought about to be big enough to actually have an impact in the world. I've been asking whether that should be 3 to 5 of them in this country or 3 to 5 of them in other countries. I have good relationships in 5 countries, kind of good relationships here. I'm not sure about America, but I'm pretty solid in Sri Lanka, you know. So to open consciousness centers in other places, I'm leaning in that direction because what it will do is get us out of the notion that holonic consciousness is something that belongs to white middle-class Americans. You know, it's not ours, okay? We get to co-experience that, but it's not, there are people who have been doing this for a long time, which gets back to the other comment of, do we do this by ourselves? You know, or can I do this by myself? No, but it'd be really great to draw on Buddhists, Hindus, Muslims, Christians, Jews, you name it, each one of them contributing something, and then and recognizing that what we're contributing to is a field, and each one strengthening the field. And I don't know if we have time to talk about the egg project, but I think I saw some other hands. Yes.
With all that has happened to you in this experience, how would you best describe how that has affected the way you live your life?
Oh, wow. First, before I even went on this journey, I closed up my apartment, I closed up my office, put everything in storage because I said, I'm not sure I'm coming back. You know, this guy talks about a story waiting to pierce you. What happens if I get pierced? I may not be back, you know. So that I could just tell him, just keep bringing me food in the cave. I could still. In fact, maybe there is a Shariff that's there. So since I've been back, a lot has changed in my life. My work has always been about creating a world that works for all. But the methodology for that creation has changed radically. Okay, it's not about me talking about this. It's not about me writing books about this. It's about actually sitting down and saying, let's do this. Let's share this consciousness. Okay, let's do whatever it is that it takes for us to get to the point where we're sharing this consciousness. And so I know, when I say marching orders, I know that within the next year or two, I need to be raising somewhere around $2 to $5 million. And that's to do the first 5 of these consciousness centers in various locations. I don't know if I'm going to need $5 million. If anybody was about to open up their pocketbook or reach in their pocket and write a check, not right now, okay? I just know that it needs to be a lot of money. I also, one of the things that was part of the revelation, part of the download, I'm calling it, was don't give up the day job, okay? Don't go running out and saying, okay, I've seen it, and now I'm going to, you know, it's like, no, I still need to generate money, and one of the things that I do with that is consulting work with organizations around the notion of inclusivity. So I will continue to do that until I don't have to do that anymore. It's deepened my relationship with the transcendent. So remember I said that the Zangzung people, the people that we've called indigenous people, have 1 foot in 3D reality and 1 foot in a different and transcendent place. Well, I've been 100% over here talking about over there, okay? So now I've kind of got at least a toe in the game over here, you know, and making a commitment to deepen the experience of the transcendent. And so things like that, yeah.
So can you sum it up by saying that you're living your life more in relationship?
Yes. And you're actually touching on page 20 of one of the new books. It's always been about relationship. Inclusivity has always been about connecting and building relationship. But I think that what we're talking about now is what I've called in the book radical inclusivity. This is taking it to a very deep level.
With all
Yes.
being.
Yes.
With all being.
Right, but the Zen practitioners say before enlightenment, chop wood, carry water. After enlightenment, chop wood, carry water. I would have said that before this journey. Now I'm saying it with a very, very different energy. I mean, I feel how deep that goes. And I recognize that my partners along the way, like I've been trying to convince people that we associate with that this is the way. But I recognize my partners along the way aren't human beings. My partners along the way, some of them don't even have bodies. My partners along the way are parts of the life energy field that I wasn't even accessing. I wasn't even paying attention to. Quick story. I was staying at a friend's farm some time ago, and they were out of town, and I needed to keep the house warm, and he heated the house with wood. And he said, you can use as much as you want, but you got to bring wood in to replenish it. And he said, before you leave, he had a couple of animals, horses. He said, make sure that their trough hasn't frozen over, and if it has, there's an axe beside the trough to break the ice. And as I was doing that, I said, okay, I'm chopping water and carrying wood. Pretty good, okay. Yeah. So, last question time. If we don't have a last question.
I just want to honor you for sharing so from your heart tonight and including us in this next step, or this only step, or this whatever step you want to
It's like the path. You know, this is the next step, but when you step, it's a long way down, and we have to know that we can fly. You know, and we have to listen to the people who have been saying, "Oh yes, this is what human beings can do. This is what we have done, and this is where we've been, and it's also where we're going." So the third global human society is going to look a lot like the first. It's going to have the values of the first. And that's going to be pretty cool. So, thank you.